Top 10 Dark Secrets of the Royal Family. The English royal family has long captivated the attention of the entire world. As the first representatives of British families, one might anticipate that these elites would carry out their business discreetly, but that is not the case. Despite the fact that some events may not have been entirely within their control, they are accused of illegal activities and scandalous relationships. The royal family has a few skeletons in the closet, but luckily we're provided with a wide range of amusing British tea. Some of these truths may be familiar to you, while others may not, so let's refresh your memory on some of the most interesting royal family events and facts. Prince Charles's relationship with Princess Diana's sister. The older sister of Princess Diana, Sarah Spencer, and King Charles had a renowned love affair. Long before he met Diana, his future wife and the mother of his children, the king first encountered Sarah when she was in her early 20s. Diana and Sarah were inseparable after their parents separated in 1969. Sarah had a brief relationship with Charles. Later, when speaking to Time publications, she acknowledged that there was no future for the two of them. "There's no way I could ever wed him. I don't have feelings for him. And whether he were the King of England or the Dustman, I wouldn't wed somebody I didn't love," she said. Princess Margaret's forbidden love with a married man. The late Princess Margaret, the sister of the Queen, attracted attention for her lifestyle decisions. Margaret, who's been a strong drinker and smoker since she was 15 years old, led a free life. Margaret continued to seduce men after she wed photographer Anthony Armstrong-Jones in 1960. In 1973, the princess began an affair with a gardener who was 17 years younger than her. In 1976, a photo of the princess and her lover Roddy Llewellyn emerged on the top page of the now defunct News of the World. Margaret didn't escape the media. The marriage was devastated by extramarital affairs on many occasions until the divorce was finalized in 1978. Extramarital affairs of Prince Philip. There's no evidence that the Duke of Edinburgh has ever been indecent, but during the course of the royal couple's 70-plus-year union, he's been called a ladies' man and associated with a number of women, most notably stage actress Pat Kirkwood. The claimed love interest of Philip is Galina Ulanova. However, there's no proof the two ever had a relationship. However, there were rumors that the monarch was dating Kirkwood, a stage actor famously referred to as having the eighth wonder of the world legs by critic Kenneth Tynan in the 1930s and 1940s. The controversial reign and relationship of the Duke of Windsor. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II personally forbade the usage of the regal title Duke of Windsor in any way. After Edward VIII became the first English monarch to renounce the throne in 1936, this momentous event in royal history took place. Edward, who was approaching his 40th birthday and was still single, socialized in sophisticated London society by 1934 and had a serious crush on Mrs. Wallis Simpson, who was then married. King George V died in January 1936, and Edward was subsequently declared king. Thus, he never had the chance to tell his father about his plans to marry his sweetheart. Wallis's prior marriages continued to generate friction in the relationship. She'd recently divorced a US Navy pilot and was married to an English-American businessman when she first met Edward. This was a requirement for a potential queen that was unacceptable to the Church of England and the majority of British MPs. Winston Churchill, a backbencher for the Conservative Party at the time, was the only well-known politician to give support. The concept of a morganatic marriage in which Wallis had no rights to rank or property was rejected by Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin. Edward, who was certain that he would not be discouraged, abdicated the throne in 1936 at the regal Fort Belvedere mansion on Windsor Great Park, which is the boundary between Berkshire and Surrey. He was given the title of Duke of Windsor by the new monarch, his younger brother, George VI. After being married in 1937, Edward and Wallis spent the following 2 years in France before relocating abroad. Although Edward passed away in Paris in 1972, he was buried at Windsor Castle. Later, in 1986, Wallis passed away and was buried next to him. Prince Andrew's complicated relationships. In an interview, Prince Andrew recalled how he first met Epstein through Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's ex-girlfriend, in 1999. Several women have accused Maxwell of being involved with Epstein in sex abuse and trafficking. Every accusation made against her has been rejected. While it is undeniable that Prince Andrew connected with Epstein via Maxwell, others have speculated that their encounter took place before 1999. The duo may have known one another since the early 1990s. Princess Beatrice's controversial relationship. Princess Beatrice, the Queen's granddaughter and the seventh in line to the throne, is a socialite and humanitarian. She's also made some questionable relationship choices in the past. At the age of barely 17, the princess began dating American playboy Paolo Liuzzo in 2006. Prior to dating Princess Beatrice, Liuzzo was detained for the murder of Jonathan Duchatelier, a 19-year-old. In 2002, Duchatelier, who had reportedly confronted Liuzzo for allegedly insulting women at a party, was brutally attacked and later died as a result of his wounds. Surprisingly, the accusation of homicide was dismissed and changed to assault and battery. Even worse, Liuzzo violated the terms of his probation by traveling to the French Alps to court Beatrice. Thank goodness the marriage didn't last long. The English royal family's German connections and inbreeding. You might be shocked after learning that the jokes about the royal family's twisted relationships are actually true. Two of history's most well-known kings were first cousins, despite the fact that such a thing is unthinkable in the modern world. Prince Albert and Queen Victoria had 9 children together after being married in 1840. Victoria was open about how much she loved Albert, and she was crushed when he passed away from typhoid disease in 1861. She was devastated for the rest of her life. In any family today, let alone the British royals, can you imagine 2 first cousins being married and producing kids? There were other family members with Nazi connections than Prince Philip. King Edward VIII had a unique bond with and appreciation for his German relatives. That was fine, until Adolf Hitler rose to power in the 1920s and 30s. A full-fledged route of annihilation and devastation replaced the German economy's early progress, and King Edward VIII seemed unconcerned about it. He even said it was no business of ours to interfere in Germany's internal affairs, either regarding Jews or regarding anything else, to a German relative. Prince Philip's sisters were Nazis. Many fans of the royal family are aware that Prince Philip was born in Greece and that his family experienced several tragedies. When Philip's mother was given a schizophrenia diagnosis, his father and his lover relocated to Monte Carlo. Prince Philip was left alone when his sisters got married. "It's just what occurred," he once said in an explanation. "The family was split apart. My sisters were married. My mother was ailing and my father was in the south of France. I had no choice but to proceed." Queen Elizabeth's cousins with disabilities. Nerissa and Catherine Bowes-Lyon were Nerissa's first cousins. They were stashed away in the Royal Earlswood Institution for Mental Defects when they were 22 and 15 years old because they were both born with mental defects. In an effort to keep the girls' existence secret from the world, their family also reported the girls as being deceased in 1961. Although Catherine and Queen Elizabeth were born in the same year, their families had very little knowledge of how to deal with mental problems, thus their lives were very different. Prince Harry's struggle with substance abuse. The Duke of Sussex said that he drank heavily, took cocaine, and smoked pot throughout his life in his book Spare, which was published in January. Harry, 38, has acknowledged using psychedelics far into his adult life after first saying he only did cocaine as a teenager. The prince described hallucinogenic substances as a fundamental aspect of his existence in an earlier this month online conversation with trauma specialist Gabor Mate. Over the years, the royal family has experienced its fair share of scandals and secrets. Even though some of these disclosures may come as a shock, it's vital to keep in mind that these people had flaws and weaknesses just as everyone else does. However, these mysteries offer an intriguing window into the royal family's secret history, and people will probably be fascinated by them for many centuries to come.